Hey guys, this is EJ Holland with the Wolverine.com, and Michigan has scored a big commitment on the recruiting trail. Before we talk about that, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel for free. Get updates every time new commitments drop, and also subscribe to the Wolverine.com for just $1 for 1 month for more intel on Michigan recruiting. So like I said, Michigan has scored a big commitment on the recruiting trail. Top 100 edge Nate Marshall out of Oak Park, Illinois, has committed to Michigan today. It's a big win for the Wolverines for multiple reasons. Obviously, Marshall is a talented player, and I'll talk about him here in a little bit, but it's a huge win for Michigan from a momentum perspective. Michigan hasn't had a commitment in almost 4 months, so it's been a long drought, especially coming off a national championship. It didn't seem like Michigan really took advantage of that on the recruiting trail. And a lot of that had to do with just the staff movement. You know, Sherrone Moore is a new head coach, but he also had to replace the entire defensive staff. There were a few moves on the offensive side of the ball as well. So it's been a bit of a chaotic offseason in Ann Arbor, which hindered Michigan's ability to, again, capitalize off that national championship win. So it puts an end to an almost 4-month commitment drought. Nate Marshall is also the first commitment for Sherrone Moore as head coach. Now, Sherrone Moore is expected to be very active and aggressive on the recruiting trail. And I think the Nate Marshall victory shows that. Remember, Michigan has cycled through 3 defensive line coaches this offseason. You had Mike Elston leave, you had Greg Scruggs come in and then get into some issues, and obviously he departed. And now you have Lou Esposito, who comes in without any Power 5 recruiting experience. But Sherrone Moore personally was very involved in the Nate Marshall recruitment. Remember, before Sherrone Moore was the head coach at Michigan, he was an area recruiter for Chicagoland. And he personally saw Marshall a few times as an underclassman. And right after Sherrone Moore was named head coach, he went out and saw Marshall during the winter contact period. So he made him a top overall priority. He made him feel like one of the most important targets of the cycle. And obviously he personally was able to close this weekend. And that's not to take away from Lou Esposito. You have to give him a lot of credit. He's only been on the job for a few weeks, and to come in and connect with Nate Marshall during the spring visit weekend to make him feel comfortable enough to commit to Michigan, despite this being the only time they've ever met. I mean, you have to give a lot of props to Esposito. Again, a guy that doesn't have any Power 5 recruiting experience, but just has put in a lot of effort on the trail since coming in. And Esposito obviously, has Chicagoland ties as well. And that certainly helped in this recruitment. So, talking about Marshall as a player, he's a top 100 guy across the board. You look at his film and you see the athleticism pops out right away. His mother played Division I basketball. His uncle was in the NBA. So he kind of has that basketball background as well. So the athleticism is definitely a plus. You saw early in the highlights him playing wide receiver. He also plays some tight end. And, he's a guy that's an effective weapon on the offensive side of the ball. He caught 4 touchdowns last year. Defensively, he's a little bit of a tweener. I think he's an edge at Michigan, and that's where they've been recruiting him at. So I know he's listed as a defensive lineman, listed at 6'5", 265 pounds, a little shorter than that, and more of a compact build. You saw Michigan recruit guys that were a little bit, longer, lankier last cycle, like a Lugard Edekpayi. Marshall really has that thick, compact build. He's evenly distributed in his frame. So because of that, I also think he can bulk up, add even more weight, and spin down and play the 4-eye. Now, you saw him play a lot of interior defensive line. You're seeing him here lined up as a nose. So it's really tough to get a gauge on how he projects as a pure pass rusher and from a technical perspective. But again, the athletic ability is definitely there. He moves really well for his size. He has a really, really good get off as well. So I think Marshall, I have him a little graded a little lower than the services, and I've said as much here in our YouTube channel, just because he's a little bit of a hard projection, as well as, like I mentioned, having a bit more of that compact frame. But a lot to like about Nate Marshall as well. And like I said, a big win for Sherrone Moore, Lou Esposito, and the rest of the Michigan staff. And this could really get the ball rolling. I wouldn't be surprised if Michigan picks up a commitment in the next few weeks as well. So stay tuned for that. Subscribe over to the Wolverine.com for just $1 for 1 month, and make sure to like this video and subscribe here to our YouTube channel for free.